Hey, good morning, everyone. So glad that you are here. What a good day to be at church. And the sun is shining. We live in beautiful Central Oregon. And how cool is it that we actually get to be at church and be together as a family? Yeah, I know I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad that you're here as well. Hey, how many of you guys have been to the San Diego Zoo? Man, so many people have been to the San Diego Zoo. I love zoos. Actually, when I was young, I wanted to be a zoologist. That was what I wanted to do. Is I love animals, and I wanted to feed them and be a zoologist. And so I love zoos. And I've been to the San Diego Zoo several times, which I super enjoy. And if you remember the way it's laid out, the San Diego Zoo is when you come into the park, it's laid out per section per animal, and it's color coded, which makes it worth it. But you can take a tram and actually from the tram go all the way to the back and work your way forward, or you can start forward and work your way back. How many of you guys are maps people? Anyone? I love the maps, and they're just so great color coded. And we had the opportunity. I've been there several times, but I want to tell you the story when I was about 10 years ago, when my son Titus was 3 to 4 years old. We had 3 kids at the time, and we actually were down visiting some friends in Mexico. Mireya and Roberto, they had 1 kid, and what we did was we were coming back up across the border. We'd spent the night in Tijuana, and Levi and Haley, some friends of ours, were actually living down there at the time, and we called Haley and said, hey, we haven't seen you in like 2 years. Come meet us at the zoo. Let's all hang out at the zoo, and we can reconnect as friends, because she also is friends with Roberto and Mireya as well. And so we did is we met at the zoo, and we got into the park, and it was time for us to obviously take our kids, because we had some kids there, but also time to reconnect as friends. And I was so thankful the moment that they let me choose the route that we were going to take in the zoo. You know, because like I'm proposing a route, but not everybody's going to take, you could be like, well, I really want to see the koalas first. No. There's a specific way to work our way through this thing. And so they took my plan, which was amazing. So we started in the green section, which was all the amphibians and snakes, and they had spiders. I know, it's awesome. And then we worked our way to like the alligators, crocodiles, all the way around. If you go then, you go to the birds and the condors, which I love this. Just so you know, I didn't even look up the map to be able to know this. It's all in my brain because I love it so much. And from there you go into the Sahara and you get to see zebras and gazelles, and then the Antarctic, and you work your way around to the elephants. And then, of course, you can continue on to all the Asian areas and the pandas and work your way around. But we were in the elephant area, and something happened. As we're getting ready, all of us and our kids are getting ready to go into the elephant area, I turn around and I ask the question, where's Titus? Titus is my oldest son. At this time, he's 4 years old. We had Zion and Eden. Eden was just a baby as well. Mireya and Roberto had their first kid there. And I just remember we're like walking into the elephant area, and it just struck me like, where's my kid? Now, I understand this is going to make me and my wife look like bad parents. But I've already wrestled with that, and I already know that. And I know I'm already a bad parent. So good news is Titus is still here today, so it's not that bad. But I just remember looking around and being like, Rachel, where's Titus? You're the mom. You have maternal instincts. You're supposed to know where Titus is. And she's looking at me like, well, you're the dad. You're supposed to have it under control. And I remember we're looking around at each other like, oh, my word. And then all of a sudden, this like panic, this urgency. I don't know if you've ever lost a kid somewhere. Maybe you don't know where they are right now. You know exactly what I'm saying. There's just this moment where it's like all of a sudden, I'm freaking out. Like, I love this kid, and I don't want to lose this kid. And I'm trying to figure out, was it my fault? Did somebody take him? Like, where did my son go? And, of course, all of us real quickly start to strategize and ask, what are we going to do? But in that moment of complete urgency, in our hearts, in our minds, and with our friends, you know what didn't matter? Lunch. Lunch didn't matter. And we're sitting there. If my phone would have rang and it was anyone that I knew that wanted to catch up, it didn't matter. Friends didn't. I wasn't worried about connecting with my friends in that moment. Although that was the intention, and we wanted to connect with everybody. It wasn't, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's get a cup of coffee. I'm sure he'll show up. You know what I didn't do is I didn't look at my wife and be like, hey, listen, we have 3. It's obvious that we can have more. And if he doesn't show up, we'll just have another one to replace him. Like, that's not even in your brain pan at the moment. The only thing happening inside of your head, inside of your heart, and with your friends is I need to find immediately what I have lost. And I don't care what the cost is. I don't care how fast I have to run. I don't care who I have to talk to. I don't care if anyone thinks I'm a bad parent. I'm going to do everything I can to find my son whom I've lost. Jesus, in the book of Luke, tells 3 parables back to back, and each one of them is about losing something important. I want to talk about 2 of them today, and I will finish the story, don't worry. But Jesus tells these back-to-back parables in Luke chapter 15, and a parable is just a story that illustrates a point. And so he starts with this, and I want to read 2 of them today in Luke chapter 15, 3 through 10, about 2 things that he lost, or that the story had lost. So Jesus told this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one gets lost, what will he do? The reason I started with my story is I want you to feel the urgency. So many times we can read it and be like, oh, that's a bummer. But in the moment that I lost my kid, I'm like serious about it. All of a sudden there's an urgency in my spirit. It says, what will we do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness safely and go search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, what will he do? He will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and his neighbors, saying, rejoice with me because I have found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 other righteous people that have not strayed away. He immediately contrasts the story with another one, and he says, or suppose a woman has lost her purse. It's never happened in my family. Or suppose a woman has lost a purse with silver coins in it. She loses 1 of the 10. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search for it carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, what does she do? She calls all of her friends and her neighbors and she says, rejoice with me because I have found my lost coin. And he finishes this parable in the same way. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels when one sinner repents. These 2 stories, the sheep and the coin, he compares and contrasts them. This is what I want to look at today, is that the sheep, as we know, when the sheep was lost, there was this urgency in the shepherd's voice. And the urgency wasn't the fact that he could live without it. I mean, he could. When you look at it, like the shepherd was fine. He had 99 other sheep. He wasn't going to go hungry. He wasn't going to go starving. It wasn't like it was going to break the bank in any way. The reality is the urgency in this moment came from the item or the sheep that was lost. The point of the story that he's trying to even communicate is that which was lost was not okay until it was found. Some of you have had the rare privilege in this room to lose a finger. I know you. And I know what you look like. Some of you have this, you've lost a finger. And in that moment, whether you Google searched it or DuckDuckGo'd or whatever you decided to do, you realized very, very quickly you have 12 hours if you can keep that finger on ice before you have to get to the hospital and get it reattached if it's going to have any chance of survival. If you were to lose an arm or a leg, you have 6 hours. That's if it's preserved correctly and not sitting out in the hot sun. If you're ever in that situation, I'm very sorry for you. But you have 6 hours. And I don't think you'd make it the full 12 hours with missing one of your fingers and them trying to get it back on. The urgency of losing something so near and dear to you is that it will not survive without you. And the idea, the urgency in this story is that the sheep was not okay until it has been found. Why is there an urgency in this story? It's because the sheep will not make it through the night. It will get stolen, it will die, it will get eaten, but it will not survive. And so there's this urgency from the shepherd to leave 99 safely and to say, listen, this one is in jeopardy. In the story, I didn't know what was happening to my son Titus, but I can tell you this, is that he can't live without me. 10 years later, as a teenager, he still cannot live without me. Someday he will, thank God, but he couldn't. There's an urgency in my spirit to say, hey, listen, like, he's not good alone. And whatever's happening in his life, I need to find it. But he compares and contrasts this story with a coin. The reality is the coin probably would have made it through the night without the owner finding it. The coin, it didn't matter with the coin They could have just said, hey, listen, we'll find it in the morning. Don't worry about it. Why in the world do we need to light a lamp? This is in a culture, when this was written and spoken to, this was in a culture that had no electricity. I know it's impossible for you to try and fathom. No electricity, which means when the big light in the sky goes down, all the lights go out. And so this wasn't like, hey, you know what, let's find it tomorrow. There's an urgency in this story where the lady lights a lamp. She turns the house upside down and she says, I have to find right now what I've lost. The point of this story, the urgency in this story, is that the person who lost something is not okay until it has been found. Man, I don't know if you've ever lost a wallet or a purse or credit card. I recently lost a credit card. And I just remember, it's like we're in the car doing something, and it's just like, stop everything. I need to know where this credit card is. Let's call every place that I win. If you've ever lost a wallet, in my house, it's the moment Dad walks into the room and yells at all the kids and says, everybody pay attention to me. We need to find the remote. And I don't know if it's under the couch, in the couch, or in your pants, but we need the remote. It cannot go any longer. I need to be able to turn this thing or control this thing because the chaos is moving. But it's like this moment where I'm not okay until I find that thing that I have lost. It's interesting, maybe as a Christian culture, if you have a longevity with church, our default, what we've preached over and over again, what we continue to keep as a perspective for lost things is always from a sheep's perspective. Part of that is because we're the sheep in that story. Whenever we talk about people who are lost, it's always this idea that people are lost and that they need Jesus. It's like we've communicated that people are wandering without purpose in life, and we can see this. And the reality is that even that sheep didn't understand the seriousness of the condition or the situation it was in. And so we've communicated over the years this idea of, hey, your friends, your neighbors, your family, your coworkers, they don't even know what they need, but they're in a desperate place. The sheep really didn't know. And it wasn't going to find its way home. Somebody had to go and find that sheep. But today I want to look at this from another perspective. And that point of view or perspective is that God has lost something important to him. And he's not okay until it's found. You know, God's original intent in creating you and creating this earth is that we would all be together as one family. And when sin came in, it destroyed his plan. And God's not okay until we're together again. Our sin, our choice, messed up his original intention. Have we ever looked at it from his perspective and asked the question, maybe God's not okay? Maybe he's the one that has this urgency that says, you know what? I really, really, really want to get back to the way it was originally intended. In my heart, I want to know, like, am I seeing this through a selfish perspective? Or am I able to actually see it through God's heart, God's lens, and God's eyes? When I was in the zoo that day, I had 3 friends. We had other kids. But Roberto and Mireya and Haley were with us. And in the moment I recognized, or Rachel recognized, that we had lost Titus, my world stopped. But their world didn't have to. You know, my friends, they actually wanted to help. They made urgent what was urgent in my life. It wasn't like Roberto says, hey, listen, A, you're a pretty bad dad. I would never lose a kid like that. And B, you go find that kid, I'm going to sit here and have a cup of coffee. Or there's also this really cool place that has those little like ice cream Dippin' Dot things, and I love those. I'm going to get one of those. And then what I'll do is you let me know when you find your son. You know what friends do? Friends make important what is important in my life. Why was there this urgency? Because they loved me, and they love what I love. They chose to make urgent my issue their issue. They didn't have to. But my friends locked in and said, okay, hey, what are we going to do? And with urgency, all of us looked at each other and said, okay, here, Roberto and Mireya, would you guys, with urgency, please make your way to the very front of San Diego Zoo? Would you stop and make sure you don't see someone walk out with my kid? Would you talk to security? Would you see if we can find them? Instead of like, well, I'm on my way, but did you know we're going past the pandas? I want to check out the pandas first. No, with urgency, my friends loved what I loved. And they loved me, and so they said, no, we'll do this. And they ran with urgency up to the front. Haley and Rachel took a few kids, and they said, listen, we're going to go forward to see if Titus went forward on ahead of us, and we missed him. And with urgency, they went into tigers and hyenas and then bears. Because I know the map. And they moved forward and they said, listen, we're going to see if we can find Titus with urgency in their belly. Haley didn't have to be urgent, but she chose to be urgent with us, to care about what we care about. And to say, I'm here, I'm going to do this. And with urgency, I turned around and I went backwards to see, did we leave him somewhere? Does he pull in like one of those Jesus things? And where all of a sudden you show up and he's not there. Like what in the world happened? And so with urgency, I went backwards and I went to the zebras and the gazelles because that's on my way around. And I remember like looking over the edge to see like, is my boy down there? Did he crawl over something? I'm checking every buggy to make sure that it's my kid and not their kid, not my kid in their buggy. I'm checking every restroom. I'm checking every around every building to ask the question, was he lost or was he taken or where did he go? And with urgency in my system, I'm like running. I'm not walking. And you know what? I know I'm looking like a horrible parent, but at the same time, I don't care. I'm really serious about what I lost. And so at the top of my lungs, I'm screaming, Titus! Titus, do you hear me? Titus, where are you? And I'm listening for his little voice. And I'm trying to find the thing in which I had lost. But there's an urgency in my system and in my heart to find what I was lost. And after we went through, or I went through, everybody split up, and I went through the zebras and the gazelles. I turned and went back into the Arctic, and I walked past the polar bears to make sure that there's no polar bear enjoying my son. I made sure, and you walk through to the penguins, and I walked through to piece after piece after piece, saying, Titus, Titus, do you hear me? Titus, are you there? And I just remember there was like this broken moment inside of me, if you've ever lost someone, where I'm just like, I'm starting to fall apart now. Like adrenaline's starting to like drop off, and I'm just like, God, I'm so desperate. God, would you please help my son? Would you help me find my son? Somebody, I'm waiting for my phone to ring. Maybe my wife found it. Maybe Roberto found it. Like, where is my son? And in a moment, I'm saying, Titus, Titus. And that little booger sticks his head up out of the penguin cave playground. He had met a friend, and he wanted to go back and play. And so as we moved on, he turned and he went back to the penguin to find his friend. And there was a little spot there with a mini helicopter and a little penguin cave. And he was there completely happy, completely content with his friend. And the moment I saw that little head stick up out of the little cave, I was just like, like a deep breath, that urgency. In a moment, that urgency went from complete urgency to like a deep breath. This is the moment in the story when it says when somebody repents and turns to God. It's the moment in which God just has this deep breath where he goes, oh, another one. We found another one. There was one more, followed by, as we can see in both of these stories, a party in which I ran and I grabbed my son and I hold him. I didn't rebuke him. I just loved him. Why? Because what was lost to me has now been found. And what did I do? I called all my friends. Hey, mom first. Rachel, I found the son that you lost. Not true. I found Titus. And something happened in her spirit where in a moment her urgency just went, oh, thank God. And is he okay? He's totally fine. He's totally fine. And I call my friend Roberto and Mireia and hey, by the way, I found him. Let's do this. Let's all meet back up at this place. Let's have lunch together and let's celebrate the fact that I'm not going to be arrested for losing one of my kids. Both of these stories end in the same way. There's this deep breath by God when somebody repents and turns to him. There's this just finally, like they were found. And then there's this big party. We convince ourselves, we say it to ourselves, is I found God. Oh, have you found God? Have you met God? Do you know God? When the reality is that God found you. He has been searching for you. He has been searching for your neighbors and your coworkers. He's been searching for people in your family over and over. And I want to let you know there's an urgency in his spirit that says, I'm not okay until yours is also found. And there's this beautiful moment at repentance. Both of these stories say this. And repentance is a prerequisite. But the moment someone turns and is found, we call this in Christianity the word saved. And you've heard it before. Oh, are you saved? Have you been saved? But this is the moment in which God finds you. And you realize, man, like all things are going to be good and all things are okay. And what's so beautiful about salvation is this moment where not just God's heart is content, but your heart can rest in knowing I'm safe. And I'm safe for eternity. God has an urgency for you. And there's an urgency to the situation. There's an urgency in his spirit to find lost people. And what does he do? He calls his friends and he rejoices with them. Why? And he says this, why are we rejoicing? Because they love God and they love what he loves. That's why we celebrate with God every time one person turns and says, I'm found. I got found. And what's so beautiful is this isn't something that happens every once in a while. All the time around here, we hear testimonies and we hear stories and your friends come and your family members come and all of a sudden there's this moment that says, man, I got saved. Jesus found me and my eternity is changed forever. My dad shared a couple weeks ago, if he would have never been found by God, this would never be here. We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in. It's all one person. It's found and their entire future is changed. This is the power of this moment where he says, now we party. And we as a church, we love to party. And we love to party when someone is found. You know, our community, we don't always see people who are in desperate or an urgent need for God. It's really hard to see someone who's living in desperation when the bike strapped to the back of their Subaru is more valuable than the Subaru that they're driving. We don't see need very often. You travel outside of the world, you can see need everywhere you go. You can see desperation, you can see desire, you can see I need help outside of myself. But in our community, we struggle to see need. That's one of the things that Rachel and I talked about all the time. It's like, okay, but where's the need? We have people who come and say, hey, listen, I want to help with the need. And we're going, but where's the need? I'm not saying that we don't have need. What I'm saying is that we sure don't project that we need. We live in a place where most people are like, they're totally fine. Don't worry, I'm totally fine with and without you. You know, they put on their doors, like, we found Jesus. We don't need whatever you're selling unless it's Thin Mints. Go away. That's my neighbors. But the question is, when God sees our community, what does he see? Because we struggle sometimes to find the need, but when God looks down, do you think he's content with the 4.2% of the people in our community that are found? Or do you think that his heart is urgently searching for the remaining 95.8%? Don't worry, God, we got 4.2. I'll have kids. That'll be more. Do you think he's content with the fact that 4% of our community is found? Well, 95 to 96% of the community that you and I live in are lost. That are in a desperate situation, even if it's not the situation they're in, think about it from God's perspective. He's still missing all of those people in which he's urgently desiring to find. And I wonder, you and me as his friends, do we make urgent what is so urgent in his life? Do we actually make it important to him? The reality is that lost people matter to God. Therefore, they matter to me. I think all of us could grow in our love for what God loves. I think all of us need to increase the urgency in our spirits and in our hearts and in our lives to help God look for all the things that he has lost. Man, you were tricked and sold a lie in 2020 that the body is more valuable than the soul. And we have people running around protecting themselves and protecting their bodies and protecting self-preservation. Stay away. I want to keep my body alive. When the reality is that their soul is going to hell. And we have, in an effort to help preserve their body, have neglected the search for their soul. I don't know if I can invite someone to church. 2020, didn't we get like a free pass? Didn't we get a free pass from not going out on the search party? Wasn't the search party just discontinued for a year? Didn't we? Well, you know what? If they're desperate enough, they'll find us. The sheep doesn't find the shepherd. And the coin doesn't find its way back into your pocket. It's God's intent. And it is our heart and our calling and the Great Commission for us to go find the things that are lost. And we didn't get a free pass in the last year. And I almost wonder how God is sitting here going like, guys, like, still urgent to me. Like, can we not take a lunch break right now? Can we just please, like, put it back into, like, importance in our life? Can we please just keep important what is important? And maybe this last year is not all about us. Maybe this season, maybe this life, maybe my life is better lived helping God find what he's lost. The moral of these two stories, or the whipped cream, sprinkles, and cherry that's sitting on top of your life, it's not always a job promotion. It's not a bigger and better house or an epic day at the mountain. It's not a brand new toy or 2 weeks vacation. True joy in this life is found when a person repents and returns to God. This is where true joy is found. And it's not just a person. It's your coworker, your friend, your sister or your brother, your parent, your son or your daughter. The moment that someone that you love is found and repents and returns to God, man, I just want to let you know, like, the search party's not over. And there are people in your life that you are so desperately praying for, believing for. And you know what? We as a church are going to make urgent what's in your spirit, and make in our spirit what's in your spirit. And we as a church need to make urgent in our spirit what is in God's spirit. This is God's heart for lost people. Kelsey, would you come up? I want to finish with a worship song. And I want to ask you one final question today. Do you love what God loves? Because if you love the things that he loves, you will make urgent the things that he has made urgent. It is a staggering statistic by all estimation when I sit down and I walk through how many people are actually consider themselves Christians, whether it's evangelical, Presbyterian, or Lutheran, or whatever it is in our community. The amount of people that I can see active that are actually pursuing God in this way, I'm telling you, is 4.2%. That's 10,000 out of 250,000 people in our area. Like, when God sees our community, he's desperately hoping that his people would help in the search party. And not fight over the color of the chairs or the song selection or the times of the service. For him, his heart is broken for those things that he's lost. And I'm willing to actually grab onto his heart. And I want to encourage you this week. If you're going to make important what he makes important, if you're going to choose to let his heart become your heart, this week, with urgency, would you rejoin or join the search party for all things lost? Man, go back through your calendars, go back through your contacts, go back through the people and re-pray. God, man, how many people have been walking around, tiptoeing around this idea wanting to make sure I save their body and forgetting completely about what really matters is their soul. And are we willing as his church to make important what he calls urgent? There are people that you live next to, that you work with, and that you know and that you love and that you call family that are so desperate for the thing that he has. And it's called good news. And we still have it. It didn't go away. I want to pray for two things today. The first one is this. If you are at a place where you've been found, you call yourself saved, but you're sitting here going, you know what, like I haven't made urgent what God sees as urgent. I want to make an opportunity right now for you to even just ask the Lord, Lord, would you put your heart in mine? Like, would I this week just have a taste of what you see as important? It's easy to love where we live because it's beautiful. And there's mountains, and there's snow, and there's rivers, and there's lakes, and there's toys, and there's all things. It's really easy for us to love where we live. The one place and way in which we struggle is loving those that we live with. You've seen it. You've heard it. You feel it. You're like, why is everybody moving here? Go home. Go away. You know, like, listen, you're clogging our roads. You're clogging our systems. You always seem to be at the front of the line. I can't even get a pass to go do what I want to do anymore. You've seen the bumper stickers. Maybe you have one. Ben sucks. Just leave. Like, go. You can leave. That's okay. Maybe God is on purpose bringing people here. Maybe he has a plan and a strategy. Maybe instead of pushing people away, we should actually be inviting people in for what God is doing. And instead of stopping the search party and complaining about our community, maybe we should actually engage our heart for lost people, engage our heart for what God loves and what matters most, and actually say, hey, listen, we're willing to make room. No matter what the cost, it's worth my time. It's worth my time to help him find what he has lost. As we worship, I want to just even give you that opportunity to have a conversation with the Lord that says, hey, break my heart for what breaks you. And the second thing is this, is I'm not going to assume that everybody in this room has been found. So many people are searching. And it's good. You're in the right place. You showed up at the right place at the right time. I just want to tell you, you're not here by accident. God has paved a way. Your friends have an urgency in their spirit that comes from a God who created you. And he is desirous to know you and to be found by you. And the prerequisite, the only thing that you would have to do today is say, God, I'm sorry. I receive what you've done. And I ask, Lord, that I would be found by you. That's it. And so as we stand and as we worship, I want to encourage you to either reach out to God to be found or to reach out to him for his heart for your community. Let's stand right now. I'm going to pray and then we're going to worship. Lord, thank you. Thank you for your heart for our community. Thank you for your heart for us and how your desire is to bring us into relationship with our Creator and a good God. We love you. We give our hearts to you. And we give our lives to you today. May we be found in you. In Jesus' name.